Hello, Facebook this time, and hello, YouTube. Stand by. We got to go live with our. We are now live on podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. Going to talk about the came and went NFL big June 1st trade deadline, or not trade deadline. This was supposed to be a big day past 3 o'clock Central Time, everybody. Julio Jones, Aaron Rodgers can be traded. There's other players, Hayden Hurst, Zach Ertz from the Philadelphia. Make sure I can see everything. Okay. From the Philadelphia Eagles could have been traded today. Nothing happened. So we'll talk about that. Battle of attrition. Look at all these injuries in the NBA. Crazy fanness. May talk about. Also want to talk about how to fix this college football. Something that came up in the Mac and Jack show the other day. And it kind of made me look like I was crazy talk. And I wanted to make sure and double down on my thought, which is backed up by a rule that has been put in college football with the scholarship limitations, okay? But first, Anthony Davis will not play. We got a game coming up here in 10 minutes tip-off between Phoenix, crucial game 5 between Phoenix Suns and LA Lakers. I don't want to say I told you so, but my dad used to tell me, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody will. I told you guys from the very beginning, as of a few weeks ago, when LeBron was coming back from that high ankle sprain, and Anthony Davis, being the Anthony Davis he is, these guys playing as a 7th seed, I did not believe they was going to be able to make it all the way through. Looks like they may get beat tonight and may get put out of this series. They may be able to knock out this Phoenix team, but I just don't see them going to the finals. I go against the odds makers of having them the absolute favorite there. Davis cannot stay healthy. Yeah, he is a hurt locker kind of player. LeBron will be 37 years old in December. He's no spring chicken either, folks. So, like I said, he's got a growing knee sprain, a growing strain, and a knee sprain. Now, when you're trying to compensate an injury, and I've had sores, knee soreness, ankle soreness, blisters. You're always walking gingerly. You're trying to not put too much pressure on that. So I think that knee strain caused the growing issue. If you ask me, we saw it a few years ago, back when Derrick Rose coming back from serious injury. I want to say ACL, something like that, with the Chicago Bulls Pickles. If you recall, he was trying to go out there and overcompensate that injury. And then he ends up re-injuring himself and getting put out of the playoffs. Back then, about this was 7-8 years ago, back when he was playing with the Bulls with Coach Thibodeau. Now, Chris Paul's got a shoulder injury. He's going to play tonight, but they're going to play the winner of Denver and Portland. They're tied 2-2. And, these guys are all beating up on each other. I kind of feel vindicated from my Lakers prediction. Plus, now that Donovan Mitchell, this Utah team's been laughed at, mocked, overlooked, and now they look to be in a driver's seat, taking a 3-1 lead against the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this team will play what looks like a re-energized, rejuvenated LA Clipper team, folks, And I still stand by what I said. If this Clipper team does not make it to the Western Conference Finals, I still think that Kawhi Leonard will exercise his player option. He'll have a player option on August 1st. Folks, this is June the 1st, by the way. Oh, by the way, Pickles, we are 100 days away. Everybody want to make sure and emphasize that. From kickoff in the NFL, we will be 15 weeks from Thursday. We will be in the first game in the NFL. Just wanted to throw that out to you. But going back to August 1st, so Kawhi Leonard, he will have that player option coming up. This team will still have an option to trade Paul George if this team doesn't make it to the finals. I got a feeling that they're going to get past Dallas now. There's a battle of attrition. That's the title of today's program. Luka Doncic, he's got a sore neck going back to that. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to come back and beat this hungry, motivated Clipper team there. I just don't – I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do it. Seems like the bell may have went off there for these guys. You want to look at some of their stats here. Kawhi, 32-9 last two games. Paul George has not slacked off. They know they're getting criticized in the media around the basketball world. Paul George, 24-8. You just wonder what Ty Lue told these guys going into this. So, I think that, and like I said, this team will play, the winner will play at Utah. In the regular season, Utah was 2-1 against this Clipper team. And that was with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and a healthy then Donovan Mitchell. So we're going to see how well they play out. I'm leaning Utah in that series, just looking ahead. Now, this Dallas team may, Doncic's neck could be feeling better. He could take something for his neck and shoot their lights out in L.A., and then this game go to game 7. They get hot and win the next 2. You just can't trust this Clipper team. I just don't trust them. But the West is wide open. Like I said, I felt like Utah had a slight advantage. Feel vindicated on that. I like Brooklyn in the East. Like them a little bit better now. Milwaukee's got one of their guards out. He's not a premier guy, but it's a depth guy, okay? And now Joel Embiid in the East, he is doubtful to play the next game. So Washington may steal another game and push this Philadelphia team to what they thought was going to be a sweep to end up being a 6-game series where they're going to have to get up and play hard. So, like I said, this thing is battle of attrition. Now, as far as going back to this Lakers team, like LeBron being 37 years old, in December, I think the only way he's going to win a championship, either maybe find his way out of L.A. or potentially this team having to work out another trade to get another star player. Maybe he can be the third wheel or something like that. He's not going to get any younger. People keep comparing him to you keep hearing these Tom Brady 40. Tom Brady is not run up and down the field like that. I just think that this may be his last hoorah. Now, of course, this guy is big he's a big stat king. He is a guy that wants to everybody. He wants to convince, going back to LeBron, he wants to convince me and you fans that he's the greatest of all time. If he gets the 6 rings, he's thinking in his mind, LeBron James, that we are going to think that he's the greatest of all time historically because he's going to have better stats. He's going to have better playoff stats. He's going to have better career numbers than a Michael Jordan. But if he finds a way to sneak in the back end to get 2 championships from a team that he's a third and fourth wheel on, I could see him possibly doing that because I think this is going to be the regular with Anthony Davis. This was supposed to be the year where he was going to pass the buck on to Davis and Davis be the man. I was listening today. Reporter came on, Colin Coward, said Anthony Davis was not 100% coming in to the season. He was out of shape slightly coming into this season. People want to blame this short and condensed season. I don't know. But I do say this, that it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow. Like I said, same thing with Kawhi Leonard. Now, if they make it to the finals, maybe he doesn't opt out, and maybe they do keep Paul George, and maybe they add a player. I don't know about a Chris Paul, but maybe another free agent out there, a lower end free agent. But speaking of adding, before I get off on another tangent here, I know Carlos probably coming here somewhere. The Knicks, I want to remind everybody, I know they've been disappointing, bouncing around the NBA playoffs here. 27-win team last year. They were a 41-win team this year. Thought Coach Tom Thibodeau should have won Coach of the Year. They're obviously not the skillful team that they should be. They lack shooters. Atlanta has shooters for days. I talked about that on the program, I want to say Thursday's program, where I had some technical problems here, but I did get it on the podcast. So this team needs 2 or 3 shooters. I was reading that maybe they try to go after Kawhi Leonard. He is a player's coach, Tom Thibodeau. Some of the other players, your Julius Randle and your Derrick Rose, these guys are going to have to try to talk in other teams, other players, and free agents to come play for a Thibodeau. Now, I think Jimmy Butler would. He is a coach, like Carlos said, who watched the program often, was saying that he has a tendency to ride players in the ground, and that they tend to ride players in the ground. They seem to wear out towards the playoffs and everything of that nature. I understand where he's coming from there. But also, players play hard for this guy, Kobe Bryant. Listening to it today, it looks like he total respected Thibodeau as an assistant there. So as long as the players trust you, I think that you will be able to get free agents to come to New York. There's all kinds of, this team's got salary cap room. They have a pulse again. There's a lot of shooters out there that they can pick up. Mid-level guys don't necessarily need an air quote mega star on this team. Don't need a player that's air quote in his prime. They need some more depth. Remember they Bullock and who was the other guy? Bear. Those guys are super young folks. I mean, they're talking 21, 22, 23-year-old players still trying to get a feel for the NBA life. Derrick Rose and Randall are your 2 Grizzly veterans there, and neither one of them. Rose is 32 years old, and people treating him like he's Robert Parrish, like he's 38, 40 years old. Not quite. But he has came back and played for Tom Thibodeau. So there's a trust level there. I think that they can go out and get some shooters. I think it'll be a different perception of the Knicks. I think they're probably going to get put out. I'd say they're going to fight their guts out and win this next game up in New York. And then I think Atlanta, that they're obviously the better team. The guys, let's just face it, they're a much more skillful team. But I do think that Thibodeau does need to work on some of his outside shooting, try to get the ball around the perimeter a little bit more, set up three-point shots. Guys look like they're rushing shots up there, playing a little reckless abandonment there. Needs to do something to be a better offense. Needs, what do you call in football, Pickles, an offensive coordinator for everything I've seen from him. Randall has not played up to par in the playoffs. Needs some more sharpshooters around the perimeter. Got some big men in the middle. I like this Topping guy. so the guard play has got to get better. And I think they can work out some things through trade, free agency, something to look forward to if you are a New York Knicks fan. And like I said earlier, folks, Joel Embiid, this team, I think they're going to get past going back to the Philadelphia 76ers there. So they're going to play this Knicks team next, or Atlanta, excuse me. So they're going to play Atlanta without Embiid there. That just makes that what should be a 5-game series now could be a potential 6 or 7 possible upset of this 76er team that's played so well coming into this last night's game. He's doubtful to play tomorrow night, Embiid. And this is another guy that, like an Anthony Davis, really good player, liked him since he came out of Kansas. He's had on and off injury problems in the NBA early in his career. But playing against a defensive guy like a Clint Capella, per se, it can make life hard for him. See, they've got a solid big on the inside, Atlanta, and they got those deadly sharpshooters. So this, I thought, was going to be a walk in the park for Philadelphia until that injury came up the other day, looking like they were going for a sweep of Washington. Now this may go 6, and now they're going to have their hands full with Atlanta. So now let's, and I believe, I want to say, I bet that I haven't looked at the score, folks, but I'm pretty sure that that Brooklyn game's just about over with. Now you've got Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Probably could be the best series. Could be the best series in the East. Maybe one of the best series in all of the playoffs. Once Brooklyn actually finishes off who they're playing right now, Boston. I think this game could probably, Brooklyn won. Thank you, Pickles. So that's official. Now they stay in Brooklyn, and they're going to play a Milwaukee team, much upgraded. PJ Tucker, everybody's talking about he's going to be the secret weapon to Kevin Durant. But let me tell you guys, those last few games, there was no James Harden. And I think this is going to be a different story here. Now, this team in Brooklyn, I'd have noticed it, that they're giving up right at over 100 points a game. Their defense is not going to be as good as it should be. So this is probably going to be a 6 or 7 game series. My guess, Pickles, this will probably come down to 3 to 5 points in each game. This will be a great, great series. But I do like Brooklyn to get past. I feel good about my preseason picks now. Again, we're talking about attrition. Harden's been injured this year. Kyrie Irving's been injured this year. Kevin Durant's coming off injury from last year, and he was injured this year. So we don't know what's going to happen. But if they stay healthy, if they stay relatively healthy, I do like this Brooklyn team to take that in 6, and then they're going to play what would be a walk in the park. Now we don't know. It may be Atlanta. So I do project Atlanta going forward and possibly even beating Philadelphia. We don't know how bad that knee is. They're going to do further evaluations for what Adrian Wojciechowski said on Joel Embiid this afternoon. Now, I feel bad for Philadelphia fans because I think they had a legit shot to win it. Again, my preseason favorite was Brooklyn over Utah, but I did predict one of these Eastern teams are going to win it. It's either going to be Brooklyn, Milwaukee, or Philadelphia, and I think that's going to be Brooklyn. Yeah, Claxton is lights out off the bench. Yes, that is true. And going back to Brooklyn, Charles Barkley said that he thinks James Harden's one of the best potential one-on-one players in the whole NBA. Of course, Shaq almost walked off the stage earlier the other night. But I do think that, Barkley was on to something there. Harden does make that big a difference for this team. He's playing the best that he's ever played. So I'm looking forward to it. Other news. Okay, Kyrie Irving had a water bottle thrown at him. Boston fan got arrested. Another fan ran onto the court. You know something? I wanted to talk about this again. Okay. These are new stories. This is not me repeating stories. These are new fan issues going with this, talking about the playoffs in general. I think, and I know your Spike Lees of the world, they're not going to like what I'm about to say. But for one thing, I like what Jimmy Johnson said about the football. Putting a tarp over the alleyway, the hall, going into the locker room where people cannot throw stuff at the players. That should have been done a while back. That's number one. They do that in the NFL. You can't get access to the players. Jimmy Johnson said they were throwing snowballs at them. The Dallas Cowboys when he was in Philadelphia. Number two, there should be one of those little chain things. They got like hooks and rails that you see in the bank. These little poles you put out in the bank. They've got these little rails and everything. Screen catcher. Yeah, stuff like that. That should be put on the court for people with courtside seats. And, you know, I've done security, crowd control, didn't like it. Done it at the Belmont Stakes in New York. But they should have people watching that. And if you cross that line, the players are going to have to get used to it. The stars are going to have to get used to it. But if you cross that line, you're warned, depending on how far you go over that line. And then you're asked to be ejected from the game. So, because remember, there was incident earlier with this woman cursing out LeBron, and she eventually got thrown out of a game in Atlanta. It's been listen, Monica Pickles, you remember this. Monica Seles was stabbed in the back about 25 years ago. She's a tennis player. People are way too familiar. They're way out of line. I don't think something like that could happen in NBA. I want to say they've got metal detectors and stuff. Now you can put cops watch the game, not the fans. Yeah, that's true. Stuff like that does happen. But I do think those little barricades need to be put up for people on the floor, and they need like a tarp over the walk-in through the hallway. There's been too many incidents, guys, here in the last few days. I don't know what's wrong with people. I've never been a big fan of that personally. I've told you guys before. That's one of the reasons why I do not like actually going to the games myself. Okay, let's see. So that's just about every argument here. It looks like the games are, it's kind of filling out who's who in both sides, the East and the West. Okay, today is June the 1st. Remember, we talked about this the other day, that this was a big day. And, you're reading all these emails. We're reading all these articles that the Atlanta Falcons are putting out. Julio Jones, the team has been offered a first-round pick, but they can't do anything till 3 o'clock Central Time on Tuesday, June the 1st. Well, that's what today is, folks. And none of these players, Aaron Rodgers is still a Packer. Julio Jones is still Atlanta Falcon. Zach Ertz, that's one I haven't been talking about, but he's been in the news. He's a tight end for the Philadelphia Eagles, owed $8 million this year, has been talked about in trade rumors. And I've also found out the other tight end pickles, Hayden Hurst of the Atlanta Falcons, they're talking about trading him after today. And I'm looking at this article here from SB Nation, and they mentioned guys like Hayden Hurst of Atlanta for money owed and Zach Ertz. Now listen, these guys, and then this article actually mentioned the Christian Kirk, which I think that's just ridiculous. Trey Cannon, Christian Kirk is not a bust, but his play has been underwhelming since being the second-round selection. I do not agree with that in this article. I would keep a young, energetic Christian Kirk. I think he's a good offset to DeAndre Hopkins. Hayden Hurst is a tight end, a free agent tight end that Atlanta brought in last year, and I thought was underutilized when he was thrown to. He was productive. Now, I know they got Kyle Pitts with the number 4 pick, but I like opening up the middle of the field. But going back to your Zach Ertz and your Hayden Hurstes of the world, if I'm a team like the Tennessee Titans, I would love to get a Hayden Hurst because remember, they got rid of a inconsistent Jonnu Smith, and they do not have a name, air quote, name tight end. I like Reynolds to pick up there. And, of course, I love A.J. Brown. Julio Jones is a lot of money. He is more of a brand than the actual player. And Atlanta claiming that they had this big, if they had a first-round pick, he would have been shopped already. He would have been shopped at 3:01 Central Time today. And we would be reading about him and his new team. Whoever this other team is, whether it be Tennessee, New England, or whoever for Julio, 49ers, and I even mentioned Red Seattle, that move would have already been done. My guess is, like I said, it's probably a conditional one, and they don't want to have to pay for all this. Atlanta don't want to eat that salary, and no other team wants to eat his salary. For a player who played 9 games last year and 14, 15 the year before that. But check this out. He was questionable, didn't practice most games last year. And then the year before that, there were several games where he was up to game time decision. Well, if you're bringing a guy into a new system, a new culture, a new quarterback, he's going to need to be able to practice more. This other team, whatever XY team there, to be the Patriots, Tennessee, or whoever, they don't want to pay a first-round pick and pick up all this extra money for this guy, and he not being able to develop chemistry in the regular season with the quarterback. You know, I like Julio Jones, but we have to be realistic with the production of these players. As far as Aaron Rodgers is concerned, I mentioned this the other day. I'm getting close to my, hold on, folks. Let me change out my podcast here. We're getting close here on 28 minutes. Okay. All righty. Now, okay, I'm back. My thing is about Julio Jones. Let me make sure and put this back on here. Not Julio Jones, Aaron Rodgers. Okay. The idea that's been thrown out here by former general managers, former coaches, Eric McGinney, Tannenbaum, I can't remember the guy's first name, used to be the general manager of the Jets and the Miami Dolphins. They said, listen, why should the Packers trade him now? Why not let Green Bay, why not just put him on, put the fines out there, let him know you're going to find him, get Jordan Love or whoever, Blake Bortles, whoever you want to bring in there as starter, whoever can make it as a starter, and play the season out for what it is. You can see whatever you got out of Jordan Love, which right now doesn't look good, but you never know. And wait and see what the other team will have in the draft. In other words, you may have a team that could be like a Denver, for instance. What if the Denver was a front runner, but they were competing with another player, okay? Well, what if the other team, whatever, has a worse record? Say Baltimore. Something happens to Baltimore. You have a running quarterback like a Lamar Jackson. He gets hurt in the preseason. Robert Griffin's been known to get hurt all the time anyways when he was starting. Both of them get hurt. They have a massive amount of injuries on that great defense, and they end up in the top 10, top 5. Okay? Say Denver ends up 8-8, and they're 17th and down. Well, wouldn't you rather a Baltimore Raven team with the 5th pick overall, one of those defensive players, and maybe 2 other first-round picks in the future, and rather than 4 first-round picks, all either from 17 to 25 out of the Denver Broncos. And remind you, Rodgers, you got to play hardball. You got to look at this from a business perspective and totally take the emotion out. Like I said, this idea has been floating around for a couple of weeks now. But like I said, different general managers, former coaches, they don't have to trade this guy. Now, me personally, I'm thinking my first instinct for something like that would be, okay, well, I don't want that strain of, have you talked to Aaron Rodgers? I don't want that question being asked to my team every single week, every single practice leading up to each game for 18 weeks. Remember, it's a 17-week regular season, plus you got the bye week. There every single week. But that being said, being the Green Bay Packers, a team that lives and dies with draft picks, very rarely, if ever, gets a big name free agent. They can play the long game like nobody's business to say, we'll just sit here and we'll keep it. If he retires, we still own his rights for 3 years. We still own this guy's rights for 3 years. We could sit this thing out. We're probably not going to be that good. And we're going to find out what this other guy is. We'll have this player. We doubt. We're going to call his bluff that he's not going to retire. And we're just going to save face and let him sit there. And then when somebody wants to, and he has a no trade clause. So you let this thing play out. You're sitting there with a top 5 pick versus a 17th or 20th pick to add. That's all food for thought. Because what if Jordan Love's terrible? What if he's absolutely awful? It was a drop ball, and you got to get another quarterback next year. Now, I know that the early result is, the early implications are that this is not a, air quote, big quarterback draft coming up. Well, the year before Joe Burrow was drafted, that was supposed to not be a big quarterback draft. You got Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. So you never know what these players, I never heard of Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson may be bad. But as far as those tight ends, speaking of Zach Wilson, if you got a Zach Ertz out there, if you have a Hayden Hurst out there, I know Trevor Lawrence has got Tebow. Come on, maybe Tebow will work, maybe it won't. But if I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars team, plenty of money in the salary cap, go after one of those guys. A young quarterback's best friend is a good tight end. A tight end is a young quarterback's best friend and a good running game. Zach Wilson, Hayden Hurst, or Zach Ertz would be ideal for the Jets, especially at Ertz. Ertz is a higher grade of tight end. Guy can get open, catch anything you throw to him. Still very young player. I want to say he's got 1 year left on his contract. The Jets, I like Chris Herndon. He's a pretty decent player, but I like a Zach Ertz a little bit better. Just to flat out get open, plays through injuries. A little banged up last year. Everybody gets banged up, but I felt like they probably should have did a little bit better and draft and run the Jets. Drafting a running back this year, I want to say they got the second running back, speedster out of North Carolina. But I didn't like what they did at tight end. They should have did something at tight end. So look for the Jets. They really could use one of those players. Tennessee, I would be former Arthur Smith, former coach of the offensive coordinator of the Titans, Mike Vrabel. A lot of connections there. How about if you're Tennessee, why don't you call Atlanta and say, we're not really interested in Julio. Let's go out and get Hayden Hurst. Bring him in. We could open up the middle of the field there, keeping the tight end in this offense. I'm pretty sure Vrabel's going to kind of continue, maybe add a little bit more of what this team did the years past with Arthur Smith. It was said to be pretty successful. You could probably get this guy third, maybe fourth rounder. There's much more upside. Plus, he's a much younger player. He was drafted, I want to say, the same year that Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens was drafted. So Hayden Hurst is a really good player. much under the radar. I don't believe what SB Nation's saying. I'm not in that realm. Guys, I study this every single week. People knows this. Some people put hours in studying it. I love me some Christian Kirk, okay? Sometimes he falls under the radar. I felt like Kyler Murray was trying to force the ball too much to either Hopkins or much-aged dinosaur in football years, Larry Fitzgerald. Well, now they've got A.J. Green, who's also aged a lot in football years. They still have Hopkins, who's their true number one. But I think that if the Cardinals are smart, that they will keep Christian Kirk there. Okay? All right. College football. Okay, we got a college football coming up. If we're 100 days away from the NFL, we're about 93 away from the college football season. I was on the Mac and Jack show the other day, and I wanted to clarify something. Mac asked me about what can I see for college football to be more competitive. I thought he was talking about tired of the same 2 or 3 schools winning every year, it being kind of a regional sport. He was talking about more opening up the playoffs more. I said that would water it down. I brought up the fact taking away scholarships, and the guys seemed to poo-poo that like that's never been done before. Like there was never been a air quote cap on scholarships. So here's the bit. I'll play the soundbite from the Mac and Jack show on Sunday about college football being more competitive and my suggestion. My idea would be to start eliminating scholarships. Say, for instance, Alabama wins a national championship. Lose 7 scholarships. The runner-up loses 6. The other 2 teams in the playoffs, they lose 5 the next year. They have to eliminate 5 scholarships. Now, we've got the transfer rule, guys. We've got marketing where players can utilize their likeness. So I like all that stuff for the players. But you start eliminating scholarships. Alabama, it's going to be harder for Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State and another SEC school to just continue to dominate each year. Somebody's going to feast off that. And you've got to create more parity. It is such a regional sport. A lot of the West Coast teams are getting left out. Well, of course, we take it more serious down here. But that's the only thing I can think of. I do not agree with Pickles there. I mean, do not expand it. Do not award. We don't want it to be like college basketball, just watered down tea at the end of the meal. No bleeping way. Eliminate scholarships. Let other teams have an opportunity to bring in those players, so teams like Alabama can't stack players.
Well, I don't know if you could legally do that, Robert. I mean,
okay, so Max says, I don't know if you can legally do that. Well, I had to look up something I had to verify something. Okay, 1973. This is from NCAA.com. You can look this up anywhere. 1973 brought about the first limitations of football scholarships in order to free up money for women's sports after Title IX was passed by Congress in 1972 as a part of the Equal Opportunity Act. That caused the NCAA school presidents and athletic directors to push through a limited of 105 scholarships. Additional reductions were made in 1978 to reduce football scholarships to 95, and again in 92 to reduce that number to 85. So, as of today, 2021, teams in college football, NCAA Division I, 85 scholarships. The max per year a team can add is 25, depending on who leaves early for the NFL, graduates, or etc. So that the idea that was so far-fetched, and I love Mac and Jack, but that kind of made me look like I'm talking crazy talk. I'm just giving you the facts, okay? So the idea that they cannot be taken away is totally ludicrous, okay? You can lower. You say, well, what do? You just take them out. What if the player wants to enroll and go as, pay their own way the first year? Well, with the NIL, the image and likeness being legal for a player to capitalize, someone like Nick Saban use that loophole to get some company to pay for their scholarship, not the school, the first year. But if you have a great marketing program and an advertisement like a USC, for example, UCLA, what if you live in that area? Say, we'll give you the same deal, but we have available scholarship to pay your school, so you're going to get more money and you can stay at home. That's all I'm saying, okay? So the idea, it's not totally far-fetched because scholarship limitations have been reduced starting in 1972, again in 1978, and then again in 1992. So, again, teams that are in the playoffs lose scholarships all the way up to the inner for the next year. Now, they'll be able to gain that if they don't get back. They'll be able to keep a certain amount of scholarships on the roster for no matter what. Like, for instance, if you keep going to the national championship game, there will be a certain amount of limited no matter what. You can't keep penalizing success. There'll be a floor for it, for 60, for example. You throw that number out there and just keep working at it that way. That will give teams in other regions, a lot of these players, it will give them an opportunity, more of incentive to stay at home and play in their local region rather than the big powerhouses like Mac was talking about the other day. Your Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, and Oklahoma and Georgia, those 5 schools getting all your NFL players, okay? It's food for thought. Like I said, it's something to think about. But looking at my other notes here, just wanted to verify that because the guy made it look like I was totally insane in the membrane there. And I'm only backed up by the facts here because I knew that now those reasons that those, the Title IX and all that, that's all what publicly saying. But we're privately saying all those presidents and athletic directors are saying from the 70s, Oklahoma, Miami, going into early 80s, these powerhouse Alabama then with Bear Bryant, they're stacking and stacking and stacking scholarships, completely dominating. That's what they're really saying, but they wanted to dress it up as something else. Okay? Because if you guys look at it, if you didn't put limit on scholarships, Texas could give endless amount of scholarships. The endowment for Texas and Texas A&M is the biggest in all of sports, according to Forbes magazine. Okay, there's another story I wanted to get to, and I did not know if I was going to get enough information to really make a good educated comment on, and I think I'm going to. Naomi Osaka, Osaka, French Open. I've never heard of her. She's the number 2 player, women's tennis player in the country. She's won titles and Grand Slams. Number 2 tennis player in the country. Titles, Grand Slams. Had some issues showing up to media duties for the French Open coming up. Fines, possible expulsion or something like that. Now she's saying that she's had some mental problems, have anxiety problems, mental health problems. So she's officially dropped out. And you've got people like Pierce Morgan calling her a petulant child. And then I looked up and I thought about all this stuff. She is she's only 23 years old. Okay. Yeah. 4 slams there, Osaka. And, and I'm reading, The Athletic's got this long article on LaMarcus Aldridge talking about his mental health issues and his depression problems. Former basketball player at NBA that just recently retired a few months ago. There's a story out about 2 weeks ago that I was going to talk about, but it just bummed me out too much to even talk about, was a AAA player. It's just now came back and started playing again. He attempted suicide. One of his eyes, he shot one of his eyes out. His doctor was at the game. He hit a home run about 2 weeks ago. So we should always, and I'm glad that the other players, the Williams sisters, Steph Curry, Russell Wilson, Remember, Michael Phelps had depression problems and anxiety problems. All these players and superstars around the globe are coming out and supporting her. Now, my understanding, I think the only issue with this was she didn't properly go through the proper channels to withdraw from the French Open. She should have handled it a little bit better. But other than that, I know she's young. She's 23 years old, okay? We got to cut her some slack. And we got to take people serious when they're talking about mental health problems, okay? I just talked about one of my favorite new athletes, boxers, Tyson Fury, had his mental health problems, and he's open about it, his alcohol and everything. So I'm glad that people's come out. I'm glad that she said that, and, I hope the best for her. Like I said, before today, I'd never heard of her. Then that's kind of telling you how far tennis in general has fallen. The Williams sisters are on their back end of their career. Serena's, life happens. She's in her mid-30s. I think she's my age, actually. And Venus is in her 40s. Life happens and things happen. So, but I'm glad that she did what she did. And I just think we should cut these young people some slack here, and don't say that it's, give them such a hard way to go and assume just because they're a great player that they are mature in other areas and facets of their life. Yeah, more, I like Pierce Morgan, but, I was a little bit, I'm not in love with Meghan Markle, but I didn't really like how he handled that situation. And I didn't like him calling this woman, this young, she's a woman, she's not a kid, a petulant child. I don't think he should have went there. She could have handled it different. I walked out of a job when I was in my 30s. It was a long story there, but I've done stuff that I felt like I should have handled different. She's 23 years old. She's not 33 or 43. She's 23 years old. She didn't handle it perfectly, but, show some empathy. She's still a young person, So I wanted to end the show with that, everybody. If you like the show, share the show. I kept thinking I'm not going to have enough material today. And what do you know? We're at 47 minutes of commercial-free, me running my mouth with allergies, with ear infection, running that rock. Best show in America, I could just, I'm the best. But anyways, if you don't toot your own horn, nobody will. All right, everybody. If you like the show, share the show. I'll be back on Thursday. Now, something may happen. I was thinking that today that something would happen with Julio, Aaron Rodgers, Hayden Hurst, and these other Zach Ertz. Those are really good players. Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we'll have some breakdown of next round in the NBA playoffs. A lot can go down here in the next few days with this battle of attrition. So I'll be back on around 9 p.m. Central Time here on Sports Scope Thursday. Have a good night, everybody. At that point, we will be exactly 15 weeks away from Dallas and Tampa. Okay? Again, we are 100 days away from the NFL, and I can't wait, Pickles. That's my Christmas. Thank you, Kathy. Y'all have a good night.